Hello, everyone, and good evening. Great to have you all join us for this edition of Cloud Talk. I'm Chuan Zhen, the Malaysia editor for Gen.T. This evening's edition is organized together with Volvo Car Malaysia. We have planned an exciting discussion ahead to talk about how we can nurture environmental champions to create positive, impactful, and sustainable change. Now, you might be wondering, what's the connection between Volvo Cars, Gen.T, and sustainability? Most of us may be familiar with Volvo Cars for their reputation in being an innovator as well as having high safety standards. They are now on an ambitious mission to help save the planet, and that involves electrifying its entire product range and becoming a carbon neutral company by 2040. We'll learn more about this from Volvo Car Malaysia's Managing Director, Charles Frump, who'll come on later. But before that, let's go through a few housekeeping items. Today's session is being recorded and the video will be posted on Gen.T's website and social media channels, with an article due out next week. At the end of the panel discussion, we'll have a Q&A session where guests can ask the panelists any question that they'll have. So please drop your message in the chat box. But besides that, we'll try to answer every question that we can, but please understand if we can't answer them all. But if you're posting anything from today's session on social media, please tag us at Generation_T_Asia, as well as Volvo Car Malaysia at Volvo Car Malaysia. You can also use the hashtags that you see on the screen right now. So with that being said, let's watch a video from Volvo Cars.
Hey, I'm Björn, and I'm here at Volvo to find out what is the ultimate safety test. These are the side and frontal crash tests. They're brutal. Yep, seems fine. This one is my favorite. The run-off road test. Impressive, right? But is it the ultimate safety test? This is the big one, the 100-foot drop. So is this the ultimate safety test? Well, it depends. Whether you...
Now, I'd like to invite Volvo Car Malaysia's Charles Frump to highlight the brand's sustainability mission. Over to you, Charles.
All right. Well, thank you very much. It's quite an honor to be able to speak to you today, and you know, to the next generation of eco heroes. I think that's a nice thing, and it's really a role that as you can see from this film, we're trying to play. I'd like to share a little bit more if I can here. Let's see if I can get this to work. There we go. Can you see my screen okay? Take that as a yes. Can you see me and hear me? All right.
Yes.
Good. So just a little bit, I'd like to lay out kind of what our journey is going to be out to 2040, with the hope of really inspiring you and others to really, and especially other companies, to you know, to really make significant changes to lead us into the future, and really go after this environmental crisis that we're all facing. When you look at Volvo, you know, first and foremost, everyone thinks of safety. For nearly 100 years, this has been the most important reason for us to build safe cars and to protect people. And that hasn't, you know, it hasn't wavered over the past nearly 100 years. You may or may not know that Volvo invented the 3-point safety belt in 1959 and decided not to protect the patent, so that now every car you ever drive comes with a 3-point safety belt. And that innovation alone has saved over 1 million lives around the world. which is something we're very proud of. We've had some history in a lot of different areas that you can see here. And I could talk all day about the safety innovations that we've had, but I think it's really today about a bigger purpose than that. And if you look, we've really redefined who we are with our company purpose is a freedom to move in a personal, sustainable, and safe way. Of course, you'll recognize that safe is there, but sustainable is something now that we really want people to know that we're changing for the better. And I think it's a change that really comes from our DNA, right? I think that this previous film you saw gives you some good insight into why we care so much. We've always cared about people, and now we see the safety of people more and more has become linked to climate change. And we see all of the disasters that are happening around the world. And of course, we recognize that we've been part of the problem. Now we want to be part of the solution, right? And this is something we've been actively working on and setting up our future production and our future developments to work towards. So if you look in 2019, we said to the world that we are going to launch fully electric cars. We're going to be the first car company that has every car that we launch have an electric motor in it. And then we're going to launch a fully electric car every year for the next 5 years. Then in 2020, we started that with our XC40 SUV Recharge, our first fully electric, and now a full line of plug-in hybrids across our line. Now, in the very near future, now with 2022 coming upon us quite soon, we can see that in 2025 we have a very aggressive ambition of selling 50% of all the cars that we sell will be electric and full electric, pure electric, with the remaining 50% being very environmentally conscious hybrids. And now, most recently, we've announced that we're the first automotive company to say that is in the combustion engine business, or has been, that we're walking away from internal combustion engines and that we're going to go full electric by 2030. And we're the first company that has done that. In fact, and we can't see it in this with the screen covered here, I guess, but in 2040 now, in fact, we're saying that we want to be completely climate neutral by 2040. So this we feel is a very bold environmental agenda that we have. It's something that we have already changed our investments and future cycle plans around to achieve this, and this is happening for us. When we look at our strategic focus areas, climate actions, we're looking at by going full electric. We're looking at recycling everything that we can through a circular economy. But of course, I think always when you're doing any kind of business, ethical practices have to lead the way. So this is a very short update for what we're doing in Volvo. My hope is that for all of you inspiring environmental champions, aspiring environmental champions, that this inspires you, and it inspires the companies that you work for and work with to make significant change, to face the oncoming issues that we see, to be really part of the solution instead of being part of the problem. And it makes me very proud to be working for Volvo at a time that we're making such a commitment to the environmental agenda of the world. And I hope that if you can get a 100-year-old company to make such a huge change, I hope that many of you out there can make those same kind of changes in the companies that you're working in the areas that you're consulting in, to really make a difference. And if we can reach this by 2040, I mean, what a different world this will be for Volvo, and we hope that others will follow suit. So this was really what I wanted to share. And with that, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Charles. Without further ado, I'll pass the time over to our moderator, Chong Xiaowei, Southeast Asia editor of Gen.T, who will kick off this evening's discussion. Over to you, Xiaowei.
Thanks, Jin. Welcome, everyone. I am Xiaowei, and I hope you're all looking forward to our discussion this evening. So, Charles, if you wouldn't mind switching off your camera, I will invite the panelists on to switch on theirs as well as their mics, please. Hi, everyone.
Hello. Hi there.
Oh, okay. So welcome, panelists. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. So maybe let's go around the room and start with some very quick introductions. So you will each obviously be able to describe your work better than I can. So maybe you could share what you do and who you are. Maybe let's get Andrew to kick us off.
Had to be me going alphabetically, right? Thanks for the invite to join this. I think I'm very borderline when you talk about next generation compared to my fellow panelists here. So I was co-founder of our sustainability and climate change practice across Southeast Asia region almost 15 years ago, well before it's now fairly cool to do so, but back then was very not so cool. So it was very uphill struggle. But since then, we've delivered over 400 projects across the region, and are very happy that we've supported some of the largest companies across the region really advance their own sustainability and climate change agenda, not to mention the regulators and some of the governments as well. So that's a quick bit of background.
Thank you so much, Andrew. How about Renard?
Yeah, thanks, Zoe. So I've been in the sustainability and climate change space for quite a number of years now. Among many hats that I wear, one of which is an area that I'm very passionate about. So I'm also an advisor for Knights for Nature. It's really a platform where we are trying to curate, to empower youths in Malaysia to take action on environmentalism in whatever areas that they're passionate about. One of the things that we did realize especially during the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown situation, is that you have a lot of agitated youths who really want to get out there and do something about the environment, but are unable to do so. So, we have actually launched this project called Vocal, Voice of Climate Action Leaders, specifically to empower them to use digitalization, social media, to raise their voices and to continue championing and be advocates for the environment.
Thank you so much, Renard. So before we talk about the agitated youth, let's move over to Alina first.
Hello, my name is Alina, and I'm one of the co-founders of the education social enterprise called Arus Academy. What we do is that we focus on creating meaningful learning experiences, and we do this through project-based learning. We work very closely with the Ministry of Education, currently working with more than 30,000 teachers and students. What we also do is that we work with teachers in developing lessons that are themed around sustainable development goals, global citizenship, and we run leadership programs for students to have them discover their roles in making the world basically a better place to live in.
Thanks, Alina. So, Chuan Zhen, how about you?
Thanks, Xiaowei. Yeah, so I started to involve in this sustainable energy industry since about 14 years back. Yeah, I mean, since I studied in university and I touched about the renewable energy. And today, I'm the co-founder and the group CEO from Plus Xnergy. So we are a group of companies that we build a smart energy ecosystem, which is from solar system for residential houses, commercial building, power plants. At the same time, we also utilize like AI and IoT technology to build smart energy platform for a lot of building there. I think right now close to 200 over buildings is running on our platform for them to save energy in a smarter way. At the same time, yeah, we also run Plus Xnergy Academy. This is one of our CSR arm, which we aim to provide free workshop, engineering educations to all the students Right now, I would say it has more than 5.5 thousand old students has already benefit from our this academy from the students around the world, from US, UK, including like Malaysia and like in Australia as well. So one thing which we do a little bit differently is right now is we also extend our this plus Xnergy Academy, the education to a lot of Malaysian in Malaysia today. Because right now, while we are rolling out our this Malaysia this residential home solution, we open up our platform to get a lot of Malaysian on board with us, which as a micro entrepreneur. So we train them, free education for them to brush up their skill. Yeah, probably this could be make a living for them as a business as well.
Thank you so much, Chuan Zhen. So let's move into the discussion proper. So I read recently that there was a report by the Boston Consulting Group that found that the pandemic has increased our environmental awareness globally. So similar to what you said, Renard. So this basically means that more of us are aware that human activity threatens the climate and that environmental degradation in turn threatens humans. So at the same time, it seems that there are more young people, like many of you, our panelists here today, are moving to the front lines of the climate change movement. So based on UN stats that I found, I think we're looking at close to 500,000 youths around the world who have actually taken some form of climate action, whether is it at home, on social media, in school, or within their communities. So my first question goes to Andrew, and this is not because of alphabetical order. So a lot of the news coverage that we're seeing out there is in Europe as well as the US, and also in very, very selected locations in Asia. Would you say that this is a trend that you're noticing in Southeast Asia or maybe Malaysia as well?
I mean, short answer, yes. So as I said, we started the sustainability practice about 15 years ago. And just as an illustration, for every job vacancy I had, a handful of CVs applied, whereas our UK colleagues, every job vacancy they had, it was something like 50 people were applying for sustainability jobs. And I was wondering, hold on, but I'm hearing people in Malaysia say that they're really passionate about the environment, but I wasn't getting that interest in people wanting to do this type of work. They were interested in traditional consulting, even though the salaries are the same across. So that was a bit of a surprise. But if you look at the changes now, just from kind of interest in whether it's interns now or actual applicants for jobs, that's gone up. So there's a lot more jobs available, a lot more interest in the youth to get involved in this. Obviously, from my perspective, it's from the professional services delivery and helping companies and governments respond. And then I just say, look, from number of companies approaching us through the pandemic, you'd expect business might be suppressed, but the amount of requests asking for help around sustainability and climate change response, whether it's responding to climate risk assessment or we need to put in place a more robust sustainability strategy to make sure we're actually generating impact. Those number of requests have really increased through the pandemic. So yeah, it's supported by both those data points from the perspectives that I'm seeing.
Thanks so much, Andrew. So Renard, actually, you were mentioning that Knights of Nature is helping to develop young generations to understand and also advance sustainability and climate action, right? But we know that youth action isn't actually new because many of the revolutionary movements in the past have actually been initiated by young people. What do you see is the difference about today's youth climate movements as compared to before?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I would say that it's activism 2.0 is where we need to head towards in this day and age. So it's no longer about just going out to the streets and protest, but as youths of today, like you are literally, like leaders who are going to be leading in this space. So activism 2.0 is about being able to generate innovative solutions that you can offer to address a problem. So you are seeing, right, youth of today, generating and sort of starting, sort of generating or creating their own startups in order to solve, some of the largest challenges that we're facing today, especially in the climate change space. So conversations have definitely evolved. They're definitely more informed, I would say. And there's such a strong support network that we're able to provide, even through things like basic mentorship, right? With even people as experienced as Andrew, for example, who has been in the sustainability space for so long. I think it's about having that sort of knowledge transfer.
Thank you so much. So I'm actually curious to find out a little bit more about how all of you actually started in this field in the first place. So maybe we can go take this conversation to be a little bit more personal. So maybe we can start with Alina. What made you pursue a career in sustainability education?
Okay, thank you. So first and foremost, I'm an educator. I'm a teacher, and when I was teaching in school back when I was still a teacher then, we were given a set of curriculum standards that we are told to teach. And as I was reviewing the curriculum standards, I struggled to see the relevance of learning whatever that we were asked to teach to our students. And this is when we think about how do I create a lesson that is worth teaching in the classroom. And just to give you an example, we now work very closely with teachers. We look at lesson plans. We question our teachers and ask them, okay, you're teaching science. This is what you're supposed to teach. You're supposed to teach the 9 sources of energy. But that it ends there because you are then assessed on what are the 9 sources of energy. What we're trying to do here is to push teachers and students to go beyond the curriculum and ask why. Why exactly are you learning and teaching these topics? And I think I started to be more passionate about sustainable education when I started integrating this into my own lessons and saw that the students were very interested to learn more because immediately it's meaningful, it's relevant, they see it in the news, they see it around them. And that has made me and my team to pursue this path of empowering other teachers to be just as passionate about wanting to create powerful lessons in the classroom.
What about you, Chuan Zhen? So you also have your own story about entering into renewable energy, right? Through university and so on. Could you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, so during my final year project, actually, I need to build a solar car power ventilation system. However, I'm from Malaysia Multimedia Universities. So that was in 2007. And about the solar technology knowledge, right? Actually, it wasn't really that popular at that time. So I go through the whole the whole library and I only managed to find one textbook which talked about solar technology. And that's the era of Yahoo. This is Google, is not that famous. Yeah, there's an era of a Friendster. I think my fellows panel here, probably you guys know what's that. So it's quite difficult for me to get a lot of all this information. So I was quite struggling and I can't even have a solar panel to build my final year project. So I go throughout the whole Malaysia, different university to knock the door to look for the different lecturer. And finally, I managed to get a solar panel, borrow a solar panel from a lecturer from UKM. Yeah, his name is Dr. Naushad. So besides, he borrowed me the solar panel for me to build my this final year project. At the same time, he taught me a lot about how to design a solar system and so on. So it's something really practical and something really useful. So I have hardware, I have a knowledge, I have a skill set as well. So that's what I gained from him. So after that, right, this is something really quite impact me a lot because it seems like he helped me a lot. Without him, I won't start the business or I couldn't graduate that smoothly as well. So when I started my business after, a couple of years later in 2012, I told myself that I still see the huge gap between the academy syllabus and also the industrial need. And no one are really there to close out the gap. I mean, as we know, the academy study, a lot of syllabus is really there for years, right? Yeah, it could be decades as well. So that's why we founded this, the Plus Xnergy Academy, which we do a lot of free engineering workshop. So we will open up to go to different university. Previously it's physical training, right now it's online training. Yeah, to a lot of these university students, including like engineering faculty as well, help them to let them know how can you design, bring them to the solar power plant site for them to feel, touch the solar panel as well. At the same time, we do a career workshop as well for them to know what is happening over here. At the same time, I also involved as a industry advisory panel. for a couple of universities, including like Xiamen University in Malaysia or Multimedia University. So this is what I really focus is mainly because I received this gift and the knowledge as a gift from Dr. Naushad. So for me, I have this obligation and a mission to pass on for a different generation. That's why in every session, when I share with a lot of different university students, right, I always would tell them this story. And I always ask them, one day you will be at my side and passing on this knowledge as your own initiative to the community.
What about you, Andrew? How was your experience? Like, was it a challenge or maybe an academic experience that pushed you into sustainability?
It was a total accident.
It's all right to admit it.
It's not as well planned as my fellow panelists. And I'm not going to name the competitor. There was another big force. So basically, there was a forestry company who wanted support, and they asked one of our competitors if they had a CR team.
Mm-hmm.
So the presentation started, and a few minutes into that presentation, the CEO stopped the presentation and just said, hold on, what is this CR team that you've got in front of me? He said, it's our corporate recovery team, which you send in when the company's going to wind up. So that conversation didn't last very long. Dr. Renard's laughing because he knows in the corporate situation, let's not mix up these acronyms. So then they called us and said, do you have a corporate responsibility team? Not a corporate recovery team. We're not winding up the business. So what they needed help with is that they were under a lot of pressure from NGOs around community engagement, environmental impact. They just did not have any metrics really in place to manage this in a structured manner. So, you know, at the time I was leading our strategy and transformation practice. So I said, look, we can support with this. We'll leverage our forestry expertise from our global colleagues. And we basically started from there. Although I did have partners who at the time said, what is this fluffy stuff that you are doing? It is not real consulting business. But I was lucky to have a chairman at the time, now Dr. Sri Johan Raslan, who said, this is aligned to PwC's purpose. We should be doing stuff like this. An organization the size of PwC needs to be more than just traditional Big Four services. This was considered non-traditional. We can leverage existing skill set to do it. We should be doing it. And our UK practice had been going for 20 plus years on this. So there was over 100 people to tap into that we could leverage. So we started the growth from there. And from there, you know, it seems like almost every year, there's just reaffirmation that we should be doing this sort of work. So the two co-founders of Teach from Malaysia came out of my team. PwC gets opportunities to also support foundations. We supported Cancer Research Malaysia. We supported Mercy Malaysia, become like the first smaller NGO to get Humanitarian Accountability Partnership certification. And Tan Sri Jem still tells the story about the big NGOs were so surprised at how this small Malaysian NGO had this certification, but it really helped them grow. So stuff like that just reaffirmed that PwC should be using our convening power and our brand power to be doing this sort of work.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see a big corporation like PwC actually using its influence in the sustainability sector, right? So moving back to Alina, so you mentioned that you were running programs at Arus Academy that teaches students that their actions can actually have an impact. And you're also teaching teachers, or rather training teachers, how to impart those knowledge. What would you say are the top 3 skills or information that's needed to really cultivate a more either eco-conscious mindset or an impact-driven mindset in people?
Okay, so based on my experience working with students and working with teachers, what is helpful is to have a clear step-by-step of what needs to be done. So number one, what we always start off with is to teach empathy. What does it take to empathize with people? And this requires you to be able to observe your surroundings and to make comparison between how you're living and how other people are living. And we do this by teaching our students on asking the right questions. And once they can understand how, for example, an environmental issue affects the community, once they understand that, then they go into planning. Usually, it's usually collaboratively, and this is where comes in another 21st century skill that is extremely important, is to understand that sustainability work requires everybody to play a role. And as teaching them project management, collaboration as part of the mainstream curriculum is important. It's not an extra curriculum after class, extra class activity. It has to be part and parcel of everyday classroom activity. And number three is to reflect on your actions. And reflecting is also a skill that is extremely important that not many of our students are able to do. Reflect on each and every of your actions. Understand that your actions and inactions could lead to something. So I think if there's three things that I would push for teachers to train their students on, to have students to have skills, are these three: empathize, be able to work with each other collaboratively, and at the end of the day, reflect on your actions.
I think, Renard, you can resonate with when Alina mentioned that we need sustainability to be part of the curriculum, right? So I know I've read somewhere that you've actually petitioned to the Malaysian government to make sustainability and climate change topics part of the academic syllabus in primary schools and secondary schools. Have things changed since you did that? And also, what is still lacking in our education systems to nurture more young advocates in environment? Is it a very sensitive question?
No, I mean, I totally did write that petition, and it was a very long process. In fact, it was actually done in conjunction with COP26 that was supposed to happen last year, but it didn't because of COVID-19. So actually a group of us, under the umbrella of the Earth Day Network, actually got together and said that, if we really want to change things, we need to start with educating our youth and the younger generation. So we decided that, one petition that we really wanted to forward to all governments was really to make climate education mandatory. And we even had a whole syllabus that was written outright as to what needs to be covered, from years 1 to 6, primary school, and then what would happen at secondary level, all the way up to university. And that to us, right, was really the gap that needed to be closed. However, when this letters and petition actually went to certain ministries, they were unanswered. So we tried, we tried with many different techniques, I guess. We tried to contact, special officers and ministers, tried to set appointments, but unfortunately to no avail. And also, but of course, there were certain challenges as well. Like COVID-19 cases were really escalating at that time, so we had a series of lockdowns that had taken place. But I'm hopeful that this is a conversation that we can take, and perhaps we can also work more closely with Alina, since she has sort of piloted a syllabus, in fact, right, at a few schools. Maybe it's something that we could collaborate together and work to get, the ministry to start looking at seriously.
Chuan Zhen, so you mentioned just now earlier that you have a Xnergy Academy, right, that ties up with universities such as like Imperial College London. You've also done talks like workshops as well as offered internships at your company. What would you add to Renard's point on what needs to change in our education system and how can we improve that through companies like yourself?
Yeah, I would say the current education system, there's a lot of, I would say, the existing one and also the essential elements there. So what we do a little bit differently is, first of all, this is something that we would like to create this kind of awareness and also the mindset for them. So there are three important elements here. First is we always encourage them to look back, what is their passion? Because I don't want them to just want to be environmentalists because of this trend, but they have to come with something from their heart. So they have to be really clear about the purpose, the why and that's where they have passion. So with this passion, then they have to sync with the second element, which is their strength. Some of them probably like myself, like running like businesses or technology or engage with people like community services. This would be my strength. Some of them, they could have a lot of different strengths, could be like in education itself, could be a good speaker, yeah, which there's a lot of different strengths that which they can sing together with their passion. And the third one is about the global trend, because in this sustainable industry, right, the field is pretty big. There's a lot of different angles which they can stand and or they can make a mark in this in this field. So which trend, which is something is quite crucial right now, and how can they leverage on their strength and their passions on it? So this is this will be the framework that we encourage most of the students to really focus, and then they can design their own path in this sustainable field.
Actually, Alina, can I go back to you? I'm wondering, what can parents actually do to help their children become a little bit more environmentally aware? So besides schools, teaching, and so on, I mean, the teaching also probably has to continue throughout into the homes, right? So how can parents actually help their children become more aware of the environment?
I think it has to be part of the family culture and family conversations. I have a 3-year-old myself who can tell me when Mother Earth is set, and we would take walks out in the outside, and he would see trash on the roadside, and he can tell me, "Mommy, Mother Earth is going to be sad if nobody picks this up." So these are the things that, and even when you watch TV, for example, with the kids, sustainability themes are everywhere in Paw Patrol, in whatever shows that they're watching right now. At first, it makes me feel a bit sad that we are feeding our kids with ways to save the ocean when they have got nothing to do with it. They're only like a toddler. It's not their fault, but we impose on them that they should solve these problems when they grow up. But then it dawned on me that there really isn't any way other than taking responsibility together. And as parents, I'm always watching what my kids are watching so that then we can reflect and talk about this. And I think parents should make climate and environment conversations a norm. And we can start as young as a toddler all the way up. When people say, oh, climate change is something too big for us to solve, actually, it's not. Start at home. Start with your kids. Start with yourself. Are you buying clean products? Are you recycling? Are you keeping track of what you consume? And I think starting with self and moving on with your close family members and then moving on into the community at large, I think is the best way to start.
Thanks so much for the advice. Andrew, I think being part of an MNC like PwC, you have a lot of power in your hands, right? What do you think is the role of corporations in contributing to nurturing more young sustainability talents, whether is it within the company itself or beyond?
I was paying a lot of attention to Alina to get some tips there because I've got 2 kids as well.
You can add on to her point as well if you have any.
I need to learn, totally learning. I'm good at advising clients, but not necessarily doing on my own kids. So I mean, there's a lot of collaborations happening. So if I go and look at Sustainable Development Goal SDG 17, it's collaboration and partnerships for the goals. So what we are seeing is a lot more of that happening. And it's not the same as what we saw, when we started this journey 15 years ago. Like going back to the previous question around that whole education side of things. This year we saw a new foundation set up called ALAM, which is designed to transform the mindset and behaviors of Malaysians. So they say that why do Japanese just have this consciousness about waste and how to separate it into a gazillion different bins? How do we get Malaysians starting to think like that more? They've got within there, how do we instill a whistleblowing culture? So if you see someone kind of drive on a scooter up to a river and dump a whole bunch of plastic bags into it, how do you whistleblow on them? And so that's good. I'd like to think Renard's actions have also supported that as well, but that is also supported by the Ministry of Education. So it's a good move that we're seeing that recognition that we need to instill this. And it's not just for the youth. So Alina will be happy with that one. It's not just for the youth. It is obviously, it has a focus on the youth, but it's to all Malaysians. So that foundation is looking to broaden that education, which we really need. In terms of the corporate side, from my side of things, we spend an awful lot of time educating boards, and I actually don't charge most boards for doing this. So I was trying to remember, have I done this for Renard's board or not? But over the 15 years, we rarely charge boards for training them on sustainability, because it's a leverage effect. If we can help boards understand what sustainability is about, why it links to business value. We're not talking about just keep doing charity. We're saying, look, this is actually good for your business. It reduces the risks. It potentially opens up opportunities for you to create new business services. It engages your employees more. We've talked to CEOs of extractive companies, and they said, people don't seem to want to join us anymore. We're just going to have to keep paying more and more money because we're not they called it we're not a sexy industry. Just to sum it up, they said we're just going to have to pay more, and that makes us even more uncompetitive. So education is a huge thing, even at the corporate level, because you can't just leave it for the youth to come through the system. But we're glad more and more board members want to go on that education journey, and they're saying, we need to be educated enough so we can actually work with our management team. And we also hear from management team, we need the board aligned on this so that they can support us make these commitments. Because if you look at our GLCs and the CEO tenures, like 3 years, they're unlikely to be making big climate change commitments or even social impact commitments that take longer than 3 years to really impact, because they're only thinking it's going to benefit the bonus of the CEO three CEOs down. Doesn't benefit my bonus. So you need the board members to be setting these structures to help cascade that into the corporates.
I think it's really important, right? Because I think now the current generation or the younger generations are looking at a company's values before they actually decide whether they want to join a company or not. And most of them are very conscious of a company's environmental impact. Renard, can I go to you? How would you add to Andrew's point on how corporates can either attract or nurture more sustainability talents?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point, but I did want to sort of touch on Alina and Andrew's comments before that on Asian parenting. So there are a few parents that actually came to me, right, during one of my university talks, right, on green careers, saying that, like they see careers as you either have to be a doctor or engineer or a disgrace. And I was shocked because when they came to me and say that, they say that, oh, what is the future of embarking on environmentalism or a green career if you're just going to end up working with an NGO as a tree hugger? But I think times have changed, and I just wanted to give a very quick shout out to Gen.T, right, because I think you guys are doing an amazing job at showcasing what the potential of green careers could really be, right? I believe there's a whole category on sustainability and environmentalism, and I think that is a great way to sort of kickstart and to really change the narrative around this space. Moving on to your question around what can corporates actually do to change that or nurture that mindset of environmentalism, I think it really has to start from buy-in top down, right, from the boards, as Andrew has mentioned. They have to really buy into it, to acknowledge the fact that they truly have the power and leadership to change the narrative around how businesses are creating an impact, right, on the environment, either positive or negative. It's really up to them. And then through that sort of cascading of communication, by setting up, sustainability teams, perhaps, like people who are actually taking accountability to sort of move that sustainability strategy within the organization, I think is absolutely important. So you do need to have that buy-in from, like your senior management within an organization to really get things going. But that's just, speaking from my experience.
So maybe let's move on to the more intangible effects of climate change, right? So dealing with matters of climate change and the environment can actually have an emotional toll on people who are involved in it, either tackling it or trying to know more about it. So this is particularly so when we witness widespread devastation, for example, like deforestation or loss of habitats of species. So maybe I can go to Andrew first. What advice would you give to advocates who are either just starting out or starting to feel slightly negative about their impact or how much reach they can have on how to deal with possibly the emotional stress that comes with the job? Is that something that you've experienced yourself, kind of feeling tired from trying to bring action, but sometimes meeting some roadblocks?
As I said, 15 years and I'm still here. And
so you've done something right. You've hung in there.
Have. As I said, it is really difficult though. I mean, Renard's raised that point, right? It's not a job. My parents have no idea what I do. Like, oh, accounting firm. Okay, good. I was like, I'm so not an accountant, but accounting firm. Okay, thumbs up at least. But that is a stigma, right? It's going through that generational shift around what are considered good jobs. But there is that tenacity that needs to be there. I think if you are really passionate about environment, social issues, you will stick in there. And you see the tiniest win as a massive victory. Small things matter. Events like this where, if just one person in the audience feels this is valuable, this is an hour very well spent from my perspective. I've been in board meetings. I hate to say this, we got laughed out of board meetings before. Nowadays, no, but back then they're like, oh, what is this? This is not relevant business issue. I was like, but your management invited us to talk to you board members. And then I realized why management asked us to do it, so we get left out instead of management. But that has happened. I've worked with Renard's in a property development company. I've spoken to the board members in one of those companies, and they said, we do everything already. We wash the tires on our trucks when they leave the site. And I was like, no. But he said, that is what we're doing and it's good. And we don't need to do anything else. Yeah, okay, Renard, it's not your company. So yes, it is tough, very tough. But I think, again, you have to go back to the broader purpose. Why are we doing this? Is it to create an impact? Is it to alleviate potentially the impact on our next generation? Alina and I have kids. I don't think Renard and Chuan Zhen have kids yet. Might be mistaken, but it raises that perspective to us that, again, if we can make it slightly better, we're not going to solve it. I saw there's a comment in the chat. We're not going to address it all for the next generation. Unfortunately, that burden will still pass down. But if we can reduce that impact a little bit, it is worth it. It does. It really does upset me. The IPCC report that just came out. The temperatures, no matter what we do, is going to continue going up until middle of the century. As I may not be around by then, but my kids will. Sea levels will continue rising for the rest of the century, no matter what we do. And that's stuff that you say, this is definitely worth fighting for. This is worth getting the corporates, just one company making a commitment, whether it's to net zero or solving or helping address labor practice issues and stuff, that has a ripple-on effect. So for us, PwC, just one company, it has a magnifying effect, more than we could do just by ourselves. Having that big picture view, Alina's work, she educates. if at least like a handful of children stick and get into this area, it's got a knock-on effect. It all adds up.
Chuan Zhen, what about you? How do you remind yourself that you're in this for the long haul, and how do you overcome the sometimes the hurdles that you experience along the way, trying to convince people that sustainability is good, clean energy is good?
Yeah, I would say, before that, before I have kids, anyway, right now I have one son, and the second one is coming. So, but before that, while I was still started this in about 14 years back, I just found this is something quite cool, which is something meaningful, which is helpful. As that time when I was just about 20 over years old, I just want to do something more meaningful. I would say same as today, a lot of youngsters, they're also looking for a career which they want to do something really meaningful. However, it is quite tough. That's why the why, the purpose is very important, which is same as what Andrew mentioned. Because when I started my career in renewable energy industry, that time in about 2008, most people actually, they are choosing oil and gas industry. Yeah, nothing right or wrong, but at that time people, they will ask me, are you sure why you're doing solar? Are you doing solar for the parking lot, the street light, or for the garden lighting, these sort of things, or is solar already commercialized? So people, they will have all this sort of question. But something quite lucky, which is I have already, actually I watched An Inconvenient Truth, the documentary by Al Gore at the time. It's really changed my perceptions about sustainability, about I should do something in my career. Which I found out definitely this also is a career that make economic sense. So that's why I don't see a problem. I think it's a matter of time. It will come. So I just focus on my career at the time. I just have a faith. I think I have a strong faith with it. But right now, when I have son, I totally resonate with what Andrew mentioned just now. I think definitely, probably Alina, I'm not sure whether Renard, you resonate this or not. I fully agree with that. I really hope I can do something for him. At least one day, if I'm not around, at least I'm leaving a legacy. Then probably I'm just doing my part. It won't be super impactful to lower down the 2 degrees Celsius for the world. But at least I can proudly let my son know that your dad, he does his best. I mean, in his whole life to do something to the environment, and you have the mission to continue this for the next generation.
It's about leaving a legacy, a healthy legacy, right? And also making sure that you leave a healthier planet for your children, right? So let's go back to Alina. My final question actually for everyone is, and it's similar to what have been asked in the chat box for quite a few times. What is one change that all of us can make to leave a planet that's healthier for our children? Alina, can we start with you first?
I think just educating ourselves about what's happening with the world is number one. You need to sort of acknowledge that this is happening, that climate change is real. And even though it's not happening in your neighborhood, in your country, in your state, doesn't mean it's not happening at all. And I think, number one, educating ourselves, and then looking outwards. I think change needs to come from within. Change needs to come from your belief that this is required. And I just want to note that Andrew mentioned the 2 co-founders of Teach for Malaysia came from PwC. I'm a product of a Teach for Malaysia. I'm an alumni of their second cohort. And I can already see the change, as one is immediately changed by a passion, built something, and then other people believe in that passion. And here I am educating teachers and students, and I can see kids coming back to me and telling me that I have never met anyone who talk about the environment like you do. And because I've met you, my thoughts about the world and about being a global citizen have changed. And it's like that. It's immediately that, educating ourselves and then passing our belief to the next person changes their life, and then they will then continue to change other people's life.
Renard, what about you? What would be your advice?
Yeah, I would say that, with COVID-19 and climate change, one of the things we've observed is just how interconnected our problems are. but also, how interconnected our solutions need to be, right, in order for us to tackle this challenge. So for me, I guess my advice would sort of be, like to convert awareness into action and take that first step. And I think it was Margaret Mead who said, never underestimate the power of, a couple of individuals who want to make a change, because if anything history has taught us, it's this few individuals that have actually managed to enact a change or something along those lines. And I think there's so much power to that, don't be afraid of making that first step. I mean, climate change, sustainability can be such a huge term, right? When you think about it, people will be immediately terrified. They're like, wow, it's such a big macro issue. Like, are you sure that the things that I do today actually matters? And let me tell you that it does. It does. Every single ton of emissions that you're able to cut, right, makes a huge difference. And cumulatively, it's what is actually required and needed to really change the world.
Can we move to Andrew then next? What do you think?
I was actually going to use the word courage, but Renard's actually covered that point about just taking that first step and getting moving. So let me replace it with another one. I'd say education, because to the earlier points, look, sustainability, climate change, it's a massive topic. It touches every single one of us. And we're all responding in, just the panelists here, yourself as Tackler Gen.T, Volvo, and so on. We're all taking slightly different approaches, but it's all adding up to a collective impact. We are starting to see things move. So, but to do that, we need to attack things with facts. Okay, we can't believe too much in terms of social media and misinformation. We just need to understand what is the real situation, where are the real issues, do your own research into it, go ask people, go engage different people, and so on. Come educated to the topic. Don't add to kind of just confusion, come educated.
And finally, Chuan Zhen, what about you?
Yeah, I was think first of all, let's say from a corporate point of view, I think the commitment from corporate level is really important, which I agree with what Renard mentioned just now. So just for like plus Xnergy, actually we just attended a signatory membership of United Nations Global Compact, which align with this Sustainable Development Goal. So this is something that we have officially be a member there, and especially during the pandemic period when people, they are just looking for surviving or just want to keep their head above the water. But we have stood up to showing this strong commitment, because what we see, the pandemic today, what we are facing is there, but we are able to forecast something about the environmental crisis. It will be there for a long run. So this is something I would say really important from a corporate level, the commitment, strong commitment, especially from the leader side. Secondly, I would think that it's also very important for us to create the experience learning, because start from small, because as what everyone shared, that is about the belief. Yeah, and then the belief will change to action. But what shapes the belief is about the experience. So I would say probably in Southeast Asia, not every one of us have this kind of opportunity to really have that kind of experience to shape our belief, like probably most of our panel story here. So like what we did in our company is very something simple, like recycle area. Yeah, because if you look at Malaysia, the recycling, the plan, it still doesn't work after many years, a lot of education. So what we did is in our office, we have all these places, and then we keep emphasize this during a town hall, and then we have someone like the class monitor or the policy, this discipline teacher, yeah, which they will watch. Yeah, it's everyone just, they know how to put the right things at the right place. Yeah, this is something pretty small. And the other one is, which is something which I would like to do a little bit different, which is, as what I mentioned just now, right now we are providing the free education to a lot of micro entrepreneurs out there. Could be they could be the one who do home renovation. They could be the one who are doing like sales they have their own team who do sales, like probably for property and so on. So right now, because as what I mentioned, we are doing we would like to create the largest home platform in Malaysia, like few thousand houses with solar system. So we enroll them, free education for them, and we would like them to embark and join this journey. So probably at first they would join because of business opportunity. But along the way, when they are doing something, I would believe that they will find out, okay, it seems like I'm doing something quite meaningful. So from there, this is how this experience is able to shape their belief, and they were able to pass to different people. So this is something which, yeah, we are still trying. We hope this could be something able to create more micro entrepreneur, yeah, especially business owner there, able to have this awareness, because what I see is the business owner very important. We are all the leader in a different community in our own group. So if let's say every leaders, we are able to make a change, a little bit of small change, that it will become a huge impact. And one of the very last word which I would like to highlight is we always make a living by what we get. But something that we would like to create is how can we make a life of what we give to most people out there, especially to most leaders there. So yeah, I hope this kind of experience creating, which we are able to shape more people, we have this idea. And yeah, this is some part of a different type of education that we are trying to work it out in the community.
So what I'm gathering is individual action, educate yourself, don't add to the noise, know your facts, and also present your argument with facts, backed by facts. So I guess I'm conscious of the time right now, it's about 7 o'clock. So maybe we can take one question from the Q&A. Okay, so I think this is an interesting question from Soraya. So there seems to be a disconnect between different generations of climate activists. So the younger people are demanding immediate or radical action, which is different from what the older generation tends to prefer, which is a more gradual shift approach. How do you think this gap can be bridged? Who do you think can take that? Maybe either Renard or Andrew? It's a challenging one.
I was going to say, Renard, do you want to start first? Otherwise, I'm happy to jump in first.
Yeah, sure. So the question was really on the generational gap in terms of climate activism, right, or approach. I think there is some truth in that, but also for myself, right, I've actually been involved in quite a number of different climate activism groups, and I've seen Mothers for Climate and 1 Million Women. Like, these are quite progressive elderly people, like, so to speak, who are actually championing climate in a somewhat radical manner. So for me, I don't think there is necessarily a one-size-fits-all activism approach, or that there is so much of a gap there. But one way of actually trying to bridge that, I think, is to share interconnected stories. So one of the things that I haven't been able to do in this panel is actually to share my story as to why I started on this journey, and it's a very personal one. Having experienced floods and having lost, a very close friend at the age of 10 years old as a result of that flood, really impacted, my whole outlook on life and why, I take this issue very seriously. And for me, those stories doesn't just resonate with me. I realized that, when you start speaking to people, even of different ages, different age groups, you realize that there is a connection. The wildfires that you hear in Canada, people losing their family members due to the different tragedies and floods, it's all what binds us together in this narrative, which is why we say that the climate issue is such a defining issue of our generation, and it really cuts across like people of different ages. Like, really doesn't matter how old you are, and that would be my take on this.
Andrew, did you have anything to add to that?
I mean, it is interesting because there's differences in perceptions. So the youth may feel, older folk who are basically leading industry, they're setting policies and so on, are not doing enough. Arguably, you could say yes, but again, it comes down to perception. If you look at things like even Extinction Rebellion, you can see that as those events have progressed year on year, I think the last time it was done, you had a whole bunch of pensioners handcuff themselves to the big pink boat or whatever. So the generation shift and that awareness is happening. But as I said, part of the role is to also educate the older generation. When they were working this wasn't really an issue. You look at things like Environmental Act, it's from 1974. Climate change was not a thing. So I don't necessarily apportion blame, and I've learned this over the years as well, that you just have to educate and spend the time. So board members, they just don't know because they haven't been exposed. It's like digital economy now. They haven't been exposed, right? It's like explaining to your grandparents how to kind of, well, do stuff on social media, and then they get good at it. The same thing with ESG, you just got to educate. So all of us have a role to help educate the next generation. It's not that they're leaving it all to younger people. You just got to educate, and you'll be surprised. They will do what they can do.
Thank you so much, guys, for your time. Thanks so much for your candid answers as well, and for your candid sharing of experiences. I think that's a great place for us to end the discussion, and I will pass it back to Jin for some closing remarks. Jin, please.
All right, thank you, Xiao Wei. So that's all the time we have tonight. Thank you everyone for providing the questions, and also to the panelists as well for giving us all your deep insights. But quickly out to those who didn't manage to get their questions answered, if you have any further questions for the panelists, you can reach out to us at the Gen.T team, and we'll follow up on that for you. So also a big thank you to Volvo Car Malaysia for making tonight's event possible. Do check out the article, which will be coming out next week, and also on our social channels. So if you're posting anything from tonight's event on social media, please tag us at Gen.T_Asia, also Volvo Car Malaysia at Volvo Car Malaysia. You can use the hashtags that you see on the screen right now. And with that, thank you everyone again, and have a good night.